Hello, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Mormons International Edition. My name is
Woohoo.
Georgia, and I am joined here by
The
the
Daniels.
Daniels. So
Hey,
we've got the two Daniels here, one from the UK and one from the US. And I am now back in the United Kingdom, having come back from Australia. So unfortunately, last month I was unavailable because I was sick in Australia. But this month we're back, the three of us, which is
That would have been
wonderful.
so
woo!
would have been so great to have three continents at the same time, like 8 hours apart from each other. But we're making up for that now. Great to see you, Georgia.
We were so excited. We were
Yeah.
going to have three continents, three different time zones, but unfortunately, I ruined the plan. But never mind. There's always next year.
Life is life. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. You didn't ruin anything. It was just, like life. Life behaves like that. You never know what to
It
expect.
is what it is.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to start this week by saying that the three of us will be regular international edition hosts, and we record
Ooh.
about once a month to once every 6 weeks. And then we've got some other hosts. We've got Matt and Melissa, the twin siblings. We've got Ariane and Tiffany, who are the twin sisters. And then we've got the Taffy edition, which is Tiffany and Friends for Use. There are 4 different editions of Twim that you have to look forward to approximately every month or so, and we are the international edition. And what a week, hey?
Yes, what a week.
What a week for international news.
It was
Particularly
perfect.
you that you're in the UK. Actually, I mean, I would say that this has been like a very historic week for you guys. So
Probably to give the listeners
big
a
round
little
of
bit of
applause for that.
context. Yeah, a little bit of context. We're recording at what is 7 p.m. ish UK time on today, Friday, the 8th of December. So literally 2 hours ago, the news broke of Elder Patrick Kearon from the presidency of the 70, no more, being announced to become an apostle, a member of the quorum of the 12 apostles. So in a way, I've never felt like as breaking news as much as now. Like we're literally breaking the news to the Twim audience, and well, I'm gonna put the feelers out there. Well, what do you guys think? It's still very, very soon to process.
I mean, first of all, I would say that I love the fact that he's not a native from Utah. That's something that
Straight to the
connects
point.
us as internationals. So I love that. That he's also not like the traditional kind of member of the church, like ancestors that are members for generations. Right? He's a convert, and I think those are for me are very very relevant components of someone that is out of the bubble, right? Someone that is not the traditional kind of church member, and obviously his personal experiences will bring out more diversity probably in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, but most importantly, for me, someone that is particularly unexpected. I've heard about him before. I've read some of his talks, and I really like his way. But I don't know much about him, so I don't know if you can help me
Well,
around and getting to know a little
Yeah.
bit about.
let's crowdsource some knowledge from our experiences with Elder Kieran, if we have any. Also, here a quick reference to the church news news release announcement. It says that he was called on Thursday, December 7th, so yesterday, and ordained later that day, today, by President Nelson and other members of the first presidency. So this actually happened yesterday. We found out today.
And then the
Today,
news
Um,
yeah.
has broken today. Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I cannot explain my feelings towards this as someone who lives in the United Kingdom. So
how does it
if you'll
feel?
let
Yeah,
me
yeah.
just tell a few quick stories. So Elder Kearon actually served as the stake president in Bristol stake, and that's where I was baptized into the church. So he
Really?
wasn't stake president while I was there, but everyone around me had him as their stake president, and he visited on an occasion, and people just speak so highly of him. So in the last hour, my social media has just blown up with all of these people sharing this news, saying, "We love this man, he is wonderful, we are so excited." And it just feels amazing to have someone from the UK be called as an apostle. I am buzzing, to say the least. And if you'll let me tell a brief story. So I can't remember if it was when I was a member of the church already or whether I was looking into the church, but the missionaries who taught me, amazing people, elder and sister priests, love them, spoke to them today when the news broke. They heard that Elder Kearon was going to be talking in London in Hyde Park. And to set the context, this is about a 2-hour train from Bristol. We're living in Bristol at the time. And they said to me, Georgia, I really think you should get on a train and you should go and hear this guy speak. Like, you've got this opportunity, this sort of open invite for people to go and listen to him speak. I think you should go. It was a devotional or something like that. And at that point, I hadn't been in the church long enough to really cotton on to what that meant or what it would be. So I remember being very, very reluctant to give up an evening to traipse into London. I remember it was winter, it was cold, and I was just thinking, I really don't want to do this. But they were really persistent. I seem to remember this senior missionary couple packed me a packed lunch and got on the train with me. I think they even bought my train ticket. They were so keen for me to go. And we got on the train from Bristol to London, and then we went to the Hyde Park Chapel, which is where he was speaking. And this whole time I'm still kind of like, what's going on?
What am I doing here? Yes.
Yeah, I still didn't really get it. Anyway, hundreds of people there, absolutely packed. I'm sitting there. And I remember turning round and looking behind me, and I just saw this man, and I'd never seen a picture of him. I didn't know who he was. And in an instant, I knew it was Elder Kearon, and I just had this powerful experience, which said to me, you need to listen to what he has to say. And I actually went downstairs about an hour ago when I heard the news, and I tried to find my journal from that evening because I was really interested in what he said, and I cannot find notes from that evening. So I'm led to believe one of two things. Either I just have lost the notes, they're somewhere in the ether, or I didn't make notes because I was feeling something and I didn't want to put pen to paper because I just wanted to feel. And I think it was the latter. So that was my first experience of him. Yeah, to just let that feeling kind of, I do remember the feeling. I remember, sometimes when the talk is so good that you just grip onto every single word. I remember it being like that. And then I've met him on another couple of occasions, and it's always felt the same. I've always gripped onto his words, and it's the same in General Conference. So I am just beyond excited to have heard the news. When he was called into the presidency of the 70, I was very, very excited because I knew we'd be hearing from him more at General Conference and whatnot. But now he's actually being called into the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. We're going to have an opportunity to listen to him every conference. I am incredibly excited. I'm excited for the diversity, which finally seems to be coming into the sort of senior church leadership. I know we've had Elder Uchtdorf for a long time, and he's German, but to have someone from the UK be called, I just cannot reiterate enough how truly excited I am. And then those personal experiences as well just mean an awful lot to me. So can you tell that I'm excited?
Oh, of course. And we couldn't have had a better week, I guess, to host the show, especially with you being available, because to me it feels a little bit, apologies for the secular reference, but I'm a big international football fan. By football, I mean soccer for our US listeners. And I've always wanted to be in a country where a World Cup is being played, or where the country that I'm living in is playing the final game, potentially winning the World Cup. I'm from Chile, unfortunately. We've had a few good years, but not recently, so I'm not gonna get it through Chile most likely. But I was here in the UK for the 2018 World Cup, where they made it to the semifinals, and I was looking around to see how people were feeling this. Then a couple of years ago during COVID, England reached the finals for the Euro 2020, and they lost the final in a penalty shootout. And I was like, oh, when am I going to feel that? Well, if I had to fill in the gap with something non-secular, now with something spiritual, this feels a little bit like that, like looking around and seeing like the likes of you, Georgia, or other messages that I've received and the reactions from people like, this is one of us. This is one that we've mingled with, that we've, that shares our lived experiences. Like, I remember, just to share a couple of my experiences with Elder Kearon, not that many and not as close, or personal as the ones you've had, Georgia. But I my, my the first experience I do remember is when he was actually called to the Quorum of the 70 as a general authority. I don't remember the date; would have been 2010, 2011. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember because I was reading through it. I was like, oh, somebody from England, yeah, an international one, and I always kind of keep an eye out there for the international ones. And I kind of got his name on my memory, and then he spoke later on. Uh, the talk that he gave, I believe it was in 2016, about refugees. That was before I moved to the UK, or around that time, where
That was a beautiful talk.
to me, and I was talking to some of my mission friends earlier before the episode, it's probably my top one, and if not top one, top three talks of the last 10 years at least. It's a fantastic talk that actually caught me off guard when it was given, because I was like, is this really an
What
issue?
is he talking about?
Because
Yeah, like
I was experiencing the life of a student, of an immigrant in the US at that time. I was about to graduate from university, so I had that lived experience. And we often, like, there the whole migration issue is very, very, very tricky, but often in that context, rarely referred to as refugees. It feels like a far away type issue. Then I hear this talk, which was incredible, and I move to the UK and I see that reality firsthand, where much of the work that is done at the state level, even world level, has to do with helping asylum-seeking families and refugees that are literally among us within our community, within our boundaries, and resonated a lot with me. And to me, and I'm closing with this, to me, it's a great display of why global voices within church leadership at any level, at every level, if possible, are so important, because they do bring two things. One, that perspective that comes from a unique experience and sensitivity to the issues that were experienced on that place. And second, and this is more of a nice to have, but a very important nice to have, is that sense of representation that I was describing and that you're probably experiencing now, Georgia, from many angles, not just the nationality or global angle. I think, Danny, you mentioned that he's a convert to the church.
yes.
I don't know, church fact checkers out there, if you can fact check me, but I have no memory of a convert apostle, at least in the modern restored church. Maybe back in the early days, of course, everybody was a convert, but I don't know when it would have been the last convert apostle, somebody baptized during their adulthood that has served in the quorum of the 12. And I find that super, super remarkable. Because again,
Absolutely. I've had the opportunity to speak to him about it, actually, because we were both adult converts as well. I think there's a difference if you join the church when you're 10 or if you join the church when you're 20. And people can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but having had a conversation with him about it, he had lived a life before he joined the church outside of it. And I think that's hugely, hugely significant. And similarly to you, Daniel, the talk from 2016 hugely stuck out to me. I was living in Australia at the time, and I remember a specific quote. He said, "The Savior knows how it feels to be a refugee. He was one." And when he said that, it hit my heart in a way that a talk hadn't hit me before. And I remember listening back to that one over and over again, and really feeling it. So I share that same opinion as yours, that it truly did impact me that day.
yeah,
I think one of the interesting things also is that he was not a missionary, which is another very interesting thing. In a church, I think when I was a kid, I used to look at the biographies of members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And by that time, many of them that didn't go on a mission was because they were serving in the army or World War II kind of thing, right? I mean, so they were prevented from having the experience of a missionary service by giving this military service for 2 years or maybe more, right? But in the case of Elder Kearon, it's not the case. I mean, as I said before, he's a convert. Uh, he gets to know about the church because of a personal experience living in the US, like in this, I don't know, probably this internship programs or exchange programs, study exchange programs. Then he gets home, and then years later meets the missionaries, and his life changes. So from
yeah,
all this angles you're mentioning, I think is, again, it's just another very powerful reminder that we believe in revelation, and no matter uh, why you are an active member of the church. It doesn't matter your history, it doesn't matter your pedigree, your historical, background about church relationship, right? You are called, right? Because in a way you're called because the Lord decides that you will be one of His disciples on earth. So I love that. I love this feeling that. Um, the one that is called is the one that is enabled to serve,
Yeah,
and is the one that
that
is
is
capable
qualified.
of is qualified because of it's called, and not because your great grandparents are pioneers, or because you serve a mission, or you converted, or you have this very specific story that biographically speaking aligns with all the other members of the quorum of the 12 apostles. I don't know if you follow my train of thought here, but he was called again, and this kind of moments allow me to consistently feel this confirmation that people in church and callings in church are by revelation, right? And no matter why you're here, why you're willing to serve, you can be called just because the Lord wants you to uh, represent Him on earth. So that's what I wanted to say.
Absolutely. As we were talking, I made a quick list here for those watching on YouTube or on video. Those that are just listening will hear my list now. But I was listing all of the firsts, or at least the unconventional or things about Elder Kieran's calling, and we've talked about a few. So he's foreign. He's not from the U.S. and not from Utah, even if from the U.S. He's a convert. He's not a return missionary. Something that I noted here, he got baptized in 1987. He was born in 1961, I believe. He would have been 26 years old. And then he married in 1991. He would have been 30. So he was not married super young, which is sometimes a stereotype, especially in higher density areas of the church where there's this big pressure or about getting married super young and things like that. Even having gone to BYU, I've seen the experience of many feeling that they're 23 and it's too late to get married, kind of thing. So we're talking about somebody that got married deep into their young adulthood still, like 30, still quite young. But for many in the church, it might feel that he was quite old because of this kind of cultural expectation in many areas of the church. And the other one is that he was called, oh, sorry, on that note, uh, President Nelson was
He wasn't called in
called
general.
in 1984 as an apostle. Elder Kearon was not even a member of the church when President Nelson was called. He was probably roaming the streets of London or something as a
It's a human being,
non-church member.
yes.
Yeah, and I believe, fact check me if I'm wrong, Georgia, or if anybody knows. I do remember him saying that he ran into the Hyde Park Chapel one day, and he just walked in. I was like, "What is this church?" And he went in, and that kind of initiated his contact with the church. I might be wrong, but I do remember him sharing something like that as part of his conversion experience. If I'm wrong, we're going to find out soon because there's going to be a lot coming out of his life, about
Well,
his life.
he, on his Wikipedia page, for what it's worth, I don't know whether that's an accurate source of information or not. It says he was introduced to the church when he stayed with the Latter-day Saint family in California. Two years later, he met the missionaries in London and began learning about the church.
Okay,
But
so
that's
maybe
Wikipedia, so I don't know if we need to fact check that or not.
maybe I'm disseminating false information then. But if it's fact checked in the future and confirmed true, well, I'd be delighted to know. And the last one that I would like to talk about, maybe you have others, is that he was called and ordained, set apart yesterday, and it was announced today. And guess what? It's not general conference. It's an
This is
off-cycle
true.
calling. Yes. So I was actually not expecting it because of that kind of not compliance, but the church is very good at abiding to tradition and to patterns and predictability. And something that reinforced that to me, and we discussed it in our last episode when Elder Holland was called to be the acting president of the Quorum of the 12, even though, or despite of his health challenges. I always felt that that was an opportunity maybe to extend that assignment to somebody else and kind of break from tradition. But no, we did not break, and Elder Holland is the president. But in this case, we are breaking from tradition. To my knowledge, and I think we mentioned it on that episode as well, there's only been two apostles that have, in recent times, been called off cycle. And one of those is Elder Maxwell in 1981, I believe, or 82. And the other one is Elder Holland, who, just like in this case,
Actually.
he was called right after President Benson passed away, and then President Hunter, during his short tenure, within the first few days after that, he announced, or they announced, that Elder Holland had been called, and then he was sustained in conference in the upcoming conference. So this is a case that replicates that of Elder Holland almost 30 years ago. I think that was in 1994. So yeah, breaking from tradition, which, my opinion, you might think otherwise. I think it's good because tradition is great and it serves a purpose, but at the same time, flexibility does. I don't know if any of you has any speculation or thoughts as to why this might have been an off-cycle calling. Any thoughts on that?
Maybe he was just ready. Maybe it was just the right time. Who knows?
I mean, absolutely.
And I would take it from a more secular, practical perspective. President Nelson is an action man, right? He doesn't want to delay things. He doesn't want for things to take time and adjustments. I don't know. I'm just remembering when he reminded us of the name of the church and the importance of it, and how they changed everything, and then they placed the new logo of the church everywhere, and then they changed web pages and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So he did it, and he said it doesn't matter, right? This is the name of the church, and we have to do it. So my take on this is that decisions need to be made, and they need to be made soon, right? Because the church continues its work, and then things continue happening, and then therefore there's no reason to wait, right?
Yeah, I mean, 12 can do more than 11 for a few months, right? That's
Yes.
a good take. My take, probably maybe a bit more, not cynical take, but more of a realistic take. What came to mind when I saw it was President Nelson wants to extend this calling. Well, probably, we sustain him as a prophet. So we do believe, and I do believe, and stand by the fact that it's a prophetic calling, right? But from a practical point of view, I wonder how he might feel about his time, the time he has left. He's almost 100 years old, and probably waiting till April to announce and get this change made. Probably he felt prompted to, what has to happen now. And I don't know the inner workings of, between God and his prophet, but that came to my mind, and I hope, I hope it's not a sign of something to come, right? It's very easy to go and speculate about those things. But I'm thrilled. Can I say just one last thing, and more of a question for Danny, and also
Sure.
Georgia? Feel free to pitch in. There was, among the Spanish-speaking community, especially within Latin America, I think there were high hopes. I think it's a righteous hope, even though we do hear people saying, "Oh, you should just accept whoever is called," and it's prophetic. Yes, 100%. That's right. But I believe there's nothing unrighteous about having a well-intended expectation and desire to see somebody you relate to represented in such an important capacity. And I think many had an expectation that a native Spanish speaker, somebody from Latin America, Spanish-speaking Latin America, Elder Suarez speaks Portuguese. He's from Portuguese-speaking Latin America. That somebody from that background will be called, because at the moment the demographic, the non-majority demographic that is most represented amongst the church in general, and also within the 70, would be Spanish speakers, people from Mexico, South America, elsewhere. And we might need to wait well, till that happens. Do you sense something similar, Danny? How do you process that? Any thoughts?
I mean, I think it's on everyone's best intentions that someone from Latin America is called. However, again, my first take is that it will also, I don't know, the first Lamanite, apostle or something like that, like the first thinking behind it. It's a funny thinking, but it will be kind of, like groundbreaking, like, I mean, having a Lamanite apostle. And we say this, Georgia, because, I mean, we're mostly, Native Americans in
Yeah.
our heritage, like, I mean, our blood and our
We
Yeah.
haven't done a 23andMe, but if we did it, yeah, it would come out
Yeah,
pretty.
most of what is our blood component is, Native American. So it would be, again, very interesting, and probably older members of the church will be like, expectant about a Lamanite apostle, right? That again, probably funny, but actually kind of making people think about I don't know, legends or whatever, right? So, but I think at the same time, um I don't think it's that simple, I mean, there's also this language barrier, and whether we like it or not, that language barrier can be quite of a thing, and I've seen it firsthand. I consider myself someone that is capable of
Of hosting
making my
a
points and everything,
podcast in English.
of hosting a podcast and everything. But still, it's not the same. The way you understand things, the way you process things, and the way you communicate is different. I'm not saying that is not going to happen, but what I'm saying is that, again, an apostle is a man of action, right? Is someone
Yeah,
that
But I
needs
think
to
that would
go.
be more reason to call someone who is native Spanish speaking, right? Because we need diversity, we need different voices, literally,
I
I
mean,
think that
Elder
would be,
Suarez is capable of doing both. Actually, he's capable of speaking in Spanish and Portuguese,
yeah,
which is and English, of course. So I mean, this more he's more than capable of doing it.
yeah.
I'm not saying there's no one that can do it. I'm just my perception is that there are not many, uh, you know,
Like
capable of reaching all these audiences,
it's
right?
like the hurdle might be a
In
bit harder to pass, kind of thing.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I think that, well, just as you said before, that whom the Lord calls, the Lord qualifies. I think that's from President Monson. But yeah, I still look forward patiently. I know that for some people they might feel a bit disappointed because we're adding to the white male pool representation. But speaking as a non-white male, I cannot think of anybody that I would be more thrilled to contribute to that statistic of another white male than Elder Kearon in this case, based on my experience and based on everything that we just discussed. So us Latin Americans, we can wait. The Lord's timing will do its magic, its miracles, and I'm thrilled about this.
well, I
I
think we've talked for long enough on that one. It's a very exciting piece of news, so I'm glad that we've given it good coverage. But I think that we will have to move on, and I believe Daniel Yanez at this point will gracefully dip out due to a family commitment.
That
So
is true.
uh,
Thank you
the
very
other
much
Daniel,
for
Daniel
having
F,
me.
and I will continue on.
Thank you very
all
So
the best,
much.
Daniel,
Danny.
yeah, thank you,
Enjoy.
Daniel,
Bye
for giving
bye.
up your evening.
No problem.
So let's continue on. So we had the Christmas devotional last Sunday in Utah, which was in the middle of the night in the UK. So it's often quite hard for us to tune in the UK real time. But we've been
What
catching
what
up
what
over the
time is
course of
in
the
real
week.
time, Georgia? What time is in real
1
time?
a.m. is when
1
it
a.m.
starts over
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit hard to catch. I think one year when I had a young baby, I managed to catch it because I was awake in the middle of the night. But typically, I'm
Yes.
not awake in the middle of the night. So why don't you give us a rundown of that, Danny?
I mean, it was a. I think they're very lovely experience, but by itself, I used to watch it in a almost summer setting, right? So it was particularly different from what you expect. And what happens in the last year and this year for me is that it's cold outside, it's dark. I'm 2 hours away from Utah, so they broadcast it live at 6 p.m. It's 8 p.m. New York time. So it is quite of an interesting experience to kind of feel this vibe of snow, and like hot chocolate kind of Christmas, and this devotional. I always felt it was like very warm in terms of the space, and back in my home country, it will be kind of nonsense to think about being cold right by the time this is happening. So that is initially from my personal experience, but more specifically about the talks, about the the sessions. I would say that one of the most significant talks was from Elder Gong. Elder Gong talked about remembering the importance of Jesus Christ's birth, and he showed some images about different mangers that he had in his different experiences living abroad, and how being a member of the church has allowed him to get to know people from different countries, and having uh, different portrayals of the nativity, right? And I think that's another interesting peek about how Christianity, has permeated worldwide, and how we perceive nativity in a kind of with a different lens. And when we think about Jesus Christ, and when we think about his birth, I think all of us have a different picture of how that looks like. And I don't know about you, but I always think of this nativity picture in a warm summer, right? And I think of Joseph and Mary kind of desperate, and kind of maybe thirsty, and and this images, Elder Gong, while he was talking, were shown in the broadcast, as I said before, were very interesting. And then one funny thing was that they were Elder Gong was sharing that his first Christmas outside the U.S. was in his graduate studies, and they were very
In
poor.
England.
So, yeah, in England. So his wife, I think, prepared kind of a small,
Figurine.
ornament.
It was
Yeah, yes,
for the
yeah,
Christmas tree. Yes.
for their Christmas tree. And something that was funny is that that tradition permeated his family. So then his children have this, also this ornaments, and then they made their own ornaments with missionaries in their Christmas tree. And I don't know. I think Christmas is an opportunity for families to, to establish their own traditions about the purpose we're celebrating Christmas. Okay, and I
Yeah.
think he wanted to go into that direction too. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter how you celebrate it. We all gather for the purpose of remembering him, right? Of remembering his birth, and remembering his life, and the importance of his life.
Absolutely, absolutely, and just sort of more on that. Really, I wanted to talk about what the twin siblings Matt and Melissa talked about last week, and put a little sort of global microscope on it. So we had in New York City the Light the World campaign, where they put the nativity on billboards in New York City, and it was discussed in last week's episode. But I just wanted to add that it's incredible, really, that Christmas, and it just reminded me that Christmas is a time where you're sort of allowed to talk about religion. It feels like maybe one of two times in the year where you're allowed to talk about religion in a place where people aren't necessarily religious. The other time being Easter, although Easter now is kind of about the chocolate for a lot of people, and people have forgotten that it's
Yes.
about the Savior. Same with Christmas, really. But I feel like it's one time where we can actually talk about things like the nativity story and the gospels, which have the Christmas story in them, and people don't get offended, because
Exactly. Yes.
at least over here in the UK, people
Yeah.
just do
Sure.
not want to talk about Jesus. It's just not a popular topic. But Christmas is very, very popular. So it's an opportunity for a lot of people to get more involved, and to maybe feel things that they don't usually feel. For me, I remember I became a Christian on Christmas Eve. I remember that when I
Oh
was
wow.
young, I made that decision. I wasn't part of this church, but I became a Christian on Christmas Eve, because I think there's sort of a special spirit around. The other thing is, it's the one time of the year where my mum will play hymns in her house, because she's not a practicing Christian, but she'll put on, Hark the
Just because
Herald
it's
Angels,
the
and
season, yes. It's because it's the season, yes, of the year, yeah.
yeah, Joy to the World, Silent Night, Away in a Manger, all of those songs she loves. And I think non-religious people love as well. So I think it can just be a very, very special time where we can share aspects of our faith that maybe we don't usually share, and where people are a little bit more open and a little bit less hesitant to enter into discussions about faith and about religion.
There were some other two talks that I think are reasonable just to mention. One is from Sister Tracy Browning. She's the second counselor of the primary general presidency. And I think we've already mentioned this, but I like the fact that more diverse voices are also present in relevant, sessions or traditional sessions in the church. And I think that is also a lovely thing to see. And Elder Paul V. Johnson from the Presidency of the 70s, he also shared something. And it touched my heart because he talked about one of his daughters that was suffering from a severe case of cancer. She later died, but he shared some of his experiences with her and some of her notes during the season, during the Christmas season. And again, sharing those very personal stories, I think allows us, the audience, to feel closer to the people that are sharing their stories and their experiences about Christmas, about Christ. And it's also an opportunity to understand that they're all human. I mean, it's like thinking about, we were just talking about Elder Kearon and how he was like another member of a stake of a word, friend of people that that you met, right? In a way, when you hear this very human experiences in this sessions, it's also a way to understand that our leaders are also people like us, right? That are here on earth to have this mortal experience, to learn from the lessons the Lord wants us to learn, and going through very powerful spiritual experiences, but also very challenging and difficult life experiences. Yes.
Yeah, I think I have two comments to add to that. I do remember the Elder Johnson talk, and actually, I wish that in a way there could be a trigger warning on some talks, because I did find that talk very triggering and very difficult, and I ended up having to stop listening to it because it was just a painful topic for me. But the other thing that I wanted to mention was the fact that President Nelson was actually there. I didn't know if he would be able to attend the Christmas devotional at all. I wasn't sure what his health was like. I know that he's returning to his duties. And just to finish on that news item, I have a quote. So it goes along with what you were saying about how human these people are and how they share their true life experiences. Alluding to a recent back injury that has kept him at home to heal and recover, President Nelson said, "During the past few months, I have learnt a lot more about pain and its refining influence. My heart has been drawn out to our Saviour as I have tried to imagine the extent of his suffering. In the most supreme act of compassion that defies mortal understanding or description, the Saviour submitted himself to unparalleled spiritual and physical agony." So President Nelson just giving a nod there to the difficulties that he's been facing over the last couple of months and the challenges that he's been going through. But overall, I mean, the Christmas devotional, I feel like, is always a good thing to watch. It always puts you into a good Christmas spirit. I think that's why it happens at the start of December rather than on Christmas Eve or something like that. They place it at the beginning of December to sort of set the tone for the rest of the season.
Yes. And I've seen that the season comes or turns very busy, very hectic with many things. I know, school things, theater or Christmas devotionals in different locations. So I think it's just a wonderful opportunity when we're still, getting ready for it, right? So we have this opportunity to see it and then to have
Totally.
a more spiritual perspective, for the season. So I like that.
Yeah, to kind of give us that spiritual lens. Yeah. Well, shall we move on?
Yes. There's plenty to cover, and I think we've been lingering into the news that we've considered kind of critical, relevant to be discussed today. But
Absolutely.
It's okay. I think,
yeah, let's just go for a few very quick news items then. So the church put out a Latter-day Saints around the world news article yesterday, and it talks about relief efforts in lots of different places: Canada, Germany, Indonesia, Italy, Kenya, Korea, Mexico, Peru, and Uganda. So we won't have time to cover all of them, but one that really stuck out to me actually was the one in Canada, which I found very interesting. It says church donation helps feed Nova Scotians. Thanks to a 350,000 Canadian dollar donation from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Feed Nova Scotia will be able to provide more than 500,000 meals to food insecure homes in Nova Scotia. So these are not people who are homeless. These are people who have homes but are finding it particularly difficult to put food on the table at the moment. And the executive director of Feed Nova Scotia said it brought us to tears for the impact that it will have on Nova Scotian communities and those who serve them. So just a really lovely news article there. I mean, there's so many things. In Korea, people with physical disabilities blessed with blankets for winter. In Italy, 60 members of the church cleaning up flood damage. In Turkey, church honored for earthquake relief efforts. And in Uganda, lightning arresters, which divert current from power lines during a lightning strike, were installed at 30 primary schools, thanks to the church's humanitarian services department. So just so much stuff happening all around the
I,
world. I've not even covered all the countries.
I think we lose track of how much the church has been able to help to the rest of the world, or to the world in general, right? For the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years. I think it is okay as Christians, right, you know, to not being open about how much the church, because that would sound like the church might be, showing off how much is helping. But at the same time, as members of the church, it's always reasonable and good to know more in detail how the church is extending, its arms of aid and help to all of those communities or areas that are in need. And we do it as members of the church by, with our fast offering, but also I think due to this opportunity of being a global church and then understanding more the specific needs of different communities, then it allows the church to provide a more tailored, more specific and significant contribution to those communities that need specific forms of help. So and I remember Elder Arden in the last general conference, he was devoting much of his talk about it, about allowing us understand a little bit more how the church is helping, and it's in the effort of helping a worldwide community of humans, right? Of people of the world that need help, no matter their religion, their origin, right, or whatnot. So I really love
Yeah,
that. And
absolutely. And I mean, there are disadvantages to organized religion, but this certainly isn't one. This is a huge advantage, a huge positive that we do have such a force, for good in
yes.
the world, where we can go to different communities and different groups and make a positive impact. So lots happening around the world. Not time to cover all of the good things that have happened, but that was a nice article from a few days ago that was put out there.
There's another one that I think also touches the UK, and it's Elder Cook, right?
Yeah,
In the
lots of new
Parliament,
UK news. Yeah.
that's something else, right? I haven't heard that an apostle has been in the Parliament before. I don't know, what do you know about that? But again, I'm very happy that the church and leaders of the church are invited, to spaces, more secular spaces, where they can, share our beliefs, and what as members of the church we believe in. And I don't know, what are your takes on this, on having an apostle in the British Parliament? It's
Well,
kind
let's
of a
just
big
go
deal.
over why he was there to begin with. So he was there for, I believe, a celebration commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And he spoke at 2 London events. So I think it's just a way to get more of a voice for the church in different places. At least that's my take on it anyway. In fact, in parallel to this, on the other side of the world, there was, for commemorating the same event, the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there was a member of the area president, the Pacific Area Presidency, Elder Yagi. He also spoke at an event that commemorated that Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So we've got this event in New Zealand, this event in London. They're both celebrating the same thing, and we've got two people from the church represented. I think it's good. I don't know what it sets out to accomplish other than just magnifying the church on a global scale. I don't particularly know sort of the background on the whys of it. But interestingly, Elder Cook said, I believe the United Kingdom has been at the forefront of extending respect, toleration, and legal protection for religious freedom to people of all faiths, not just Christians. And I love that. It's a big thing for Latter-day Saints, religious freedom, right? And it's something that that's
what we fight for everyone. Yes, that's one of
but
basic
I love it.
assumptions. Yes,
but I love it that we don't just fight for everyone to be a Latter-day Saint. We fight for Muslims to be Muslims. We fight for Sikhs to be Sikhs. We fight for Hindus to be Hindus. And I actually really love that. It's funny, my perception versus reality, because there's the Book of Mormon musical, and there are missionaries who knock on doors, and I think the perception of the church for an outsider is that we're a very pushy religion. We're trying to get people to convert all the time. But then once I actually joined the church, I realized it was kind of the opposite. I have never been in a place where people have encouraged religious freedom, have encouraged people of other faiths to live their faith in the way that they choose. And it's part of our Articles of Faith, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
but
which is incredible.
As you said, I think I was always, when I was younger, I was always concerned that people will think that we were pushy, or we were, trying to convert them or convince them of things. And when I was a missionary, that was one of the most relevant things we learned. Like, we're not convincing anyone. We're inviting them to meditate, to ponder, to read, and then to ask God, right? And that's the calling of a missionary, is just invite others, to listen, to read, to meditate, and to ask God, right? And sometimes people might misunderstand when you have, I don't know, ministering sisters or brothers that are visiting someone for years and years and years. But we do it because hopefully we love these people. And I say hopefully because you get to love people in time, but by getting to know them better and by serving them. And so hopefully we get to love them, and because we love them, we want the best for them. And that's why these programs should work, because we care about people, and because of it, we care about their temporal and spiritual, circumstances. So
yeah, I have so much to say on this. I personally feel it is, disclaimer, this is my personal opinion here and nobody else's opinion. I feel like missionary work needs a huge revamp, because I think this sort of knocking on doors approach, at least in the UK, just has very, very limited success. And I think it makes people feel like we are pushy, when in fact, just like you said, we're not out to convert anyone. In fact, we can't physically convert anyone. It has to be the Spirit that does that. It can't be us. So it's just interesting, that perception versus reality of what I thought the church was, and then what it actually is. And these events, these proclaiming religious freedom events and religious liberty, it just speaks that message, doesn't it? That we are going to let people believe whatever they want to believe. And last week, I know I keep referring to last week's podcast, but it hit me in a few ways. They spoke about how we need to do a better job of those who don't come to church anymore, of not having an awkwardness or a strange feeling. And for me, maybe it's because I'm a convert, but I've just never had an issue with people, with my friends who have left the church. There have been lots of them. And I feel like I have a respect, and I have an appreciation of their journey in life. And I'm actually very curious. I have chats with them. I say, what led you to going down that path? And for me, I am a practicing member of the church, and that's the right decision for me at this time, and for them it's a completely different decision. But I feel like the only way in life for us to expand our horizons is to talk to people who don't believe the same things that we believe. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it said, you know, you need to follow people on Instagram who think completely differently to you, because it's only by hearing other voices that you're going to help make your worldview less narrow, and you're going to make you're going to open up to more points of view, and to understand people in a different way and a more tolerant way ultimately.
Yes, because if not, then the algorithm will pop you up only with information with this resonance box, just the same voices repeating the same ideas over and over and over and over again. I would like to transition to another piece of news that is short, but I think is significant and connects with ministering. And it's Elder Renlund talking about Elder Holland's recovery, right? And
this was
I
on
like the fact,
Instagram, right? He put something
yes,
on Instagram.
yes. He wrote something by saying, by way of background, I have spent years visiting patients in hospitals. Many were critically ill, and I saw many die. The second time I accompanied President Ballard, President Holland was in critical condition. Adrenaline-like drugs were being used to support his circulation. He was virtually non-responsive. The physicians didn't
Wow.
know exactly what was wrong and had informed his children that the prognosis was extremely poor. I felt a sense of foreboding. So, again, this is powerful, and I think in a way we need to thank social media for this, because in the past we wouldn't get this very personal experiences, right? And in this case we're talking about two apostles, right? And one in a way is ministering the other, right? So I consider that this is a very personal experience that Elder Renlund is willingly sharing to a wider audience, which is members of the church or whoever, right, who follows him, even non-members, right? And he's sharing what he knew about the health conditions of Elder Holland, and how he, and we can say it openly, he miraculously, recovered, and he was even called as acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, right? While he was even recovering in the hospital. So uh, this is one of the things where, again, we need to thank social media for this to happen, because we get to hear firsthand about these things, because I don't think that Ensign or Leona will bring, I don't know, a message from Elder Renlund sharing this. These are very personal experiences, and because of it, it's just great that we have the chance to hear from them firsthand, right? How they experience this, and how they share love. They share love with their fellow members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. These men are great men, and it's my take now that I'm aging is that when you get older, it becomes more difficult to make new friends, but they are called later in life, right, to this very challenging, very demanding calling. And then I have no doubts that they are friends there. Like, they're actually good friends who want to learn from each other, who want to grow uh, while serving. And when you read Elder Renlund's words, you get the sensation that he's really concerned about a friend, more than
Yeah,
an apostle or a fellow apostle, or I don't know, a companion, or someone that for a long time. He's honestly concerned as someone that loves another person. And
definitely. I think there's lots of interesting things from this. I mean, it's he goes into a lot of detail. Adrenaline
yes,
like drugs were being used to
yes,
support his circulation. That's
yes,
heavy
that's
stuff.
something. Yes, serious stuff. Yes,
I didn't realize that was what was happening. I knew that he was very unwell, but I didn't realize that he was that unwell. And yeah, just fascinating that it's Elder Renlund who's revealed that information rather than Elder
the
Holland or
doctors.
President, or
Yeah, yeah.
anyone else. But yeah, it is lovely, and I enjoyed your takeaways from that. So thank you for that. Should we move
And then we
on?
have we have another that is related to President Nelson, and he was sharing uh, the release of a book where he shared the lessons he has learned in the last 100 years. I don't know
Yeah,
how many
so just to
people.
clarify this, I think the book was actually published last month, but Deseret News has just run an article on it. So that's why we've picked it up as this week's news. So I think the book was released at the beginning of November. It's now the beginning of December, but I suppose Deseret News is doing some publicity for the book, or is trying to make it more popular. But I found it very curious that our prophet would be an author. And then at first it unsettled me a bit, and then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, why not? He's got stories to tell, and he needs ways of
Yes,
telling those stories. So why not write a book, you know?
and also having almost 100 years. Then I mean, being 100 years old, you get to collect lots of experiences, a good
Yeah.
wealth of them, and I don't know if I will be capable of writing a book, and I'm reasonably younger than him. So another big round of applause for President Nelson, because I don't know, publishing a book at your 100 years is not something that many people can say, right? Confidently that you share your memories and the lessons learned in 100 year life. So I'm looking forward to have a chance to read some of those pages and see what lessons he gets to share with, I think, again, a wider audience. Not I don't think it's only, written purposefully for members of the church, but for all of those who want to get to know more a little bit about the President Nelson's life, but also about what he has learned throughout his life. And again,
Yeah.
we're expecting him to be many more years with us, but it's just great that he's been capable of, publishing a book and sharing his experiences. So
Yeah, so
kudos
the
for
book
that.
is called Heart of the Matter: What 100 Years of Living Have Taught Me. And this article from Deseret News puts in 7 lessons. We don't have time to go through all of them, but the link will be in the show notes. So, Twim listeners, you can go and have a look and see what you think. But there's lots of interesting lessons in there. We need women who teach and model the doctrine of Christ, is one of them. So, there we go.
Mhm.
There's a teaser for the book, and now we've all got to go and read it.
That's super nice.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we've got time for one more piece of news this week. So if it's okay for me to choose it, Danny,
Sure, absolutely. Yes, please.
there's one piece of news that I saw that I just really loved that I was hoping we would get time to cover. So this is actually a piece of US news, but we are international, so we can cover all countries and all topics. And the title of the article is "Tactile Tour Helps People with Disabilities Experience the Orem Temple." So people with disabilities gather to feel the new temple's many patterns, textures, and shapes. So it's an opportunity for people to experience the temple in a new way, which is really nice, I think.
And
So
and
Katie Steed, oh
it's
sorry,
very
Katie
interesting. Yeah,
Steed,
it's very. Yes.
Katie Steed, Disability Specialist Manager for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, said records of tactile tours, special temple tours that allow people with disabilities to interact with sacred spaces in ways that are more accommodating to them, actually go back decades. So this isn't a new thing, but this is something which is available to church members if they need it.
My experience in the East Coast of the U.S. is that visiting centers, for, I don't know, the church restoration, priesthood restoration site, or Palmyra and Hill Cumorah, they have all sorts of accommodations, for people with different, disabilities. So I think it's just critical that we also understand, as we've been very vocal about the importance of understanding different perspectives as internationals, right? Also understanding that people with different needs will also have a specific, requirements when they're visiting these places, and I think the church does a wonderful job there. we can always do better and do more. That's for sure. But I think this article shows that efforts are being made, and then systems have been put in place in such a way that we can see more of these things happening in a more regular fashion, right? And we don't have to require them on a constant basis. Is something that is already in the best of the intentions in terms of the church, having spaces and having opportunities for people to experience the full, set of things, while you maybe you cannot see or you cannot hear, right? So I really find this
Yeah.
a step forward, I would say.
I think a step forward. I mean, it might just be a drop in the ocean, but at least it's a drop. It's something, and there are many more drops to come, which eventually will make a difference. But at least it's something. It's nice that they're considering other opinions and other points of view.
And I think our time is over, and we're kind of sad because this was a very nice episode, and we really enjoyed sharing with you the latest news. So we hope you had a wonderful experience with us. We really enjoyed this episode, and I hope the best for this Christmas seasons, and I hope you can enjoy with your families and friends, and always think about someone that might need some of our help. I think it's always a good opportunity also to think about ways of helping others that for whatever reason cannot, enjoy the seasons the way sometimes we're allowed to, or we have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
All the best for you, Georgia. I hope your family and everyone in your household are fine, and you enjoy a good Christmas spirit. And we're going to see each
Thank
other, I
you.
think, soon. We're going to see each other soon. We're going to prepare a special episode, I think, right? But
Absolutely. So
I don't want
next
to
week, in
spoil.
fact.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I think it's going to be very, very special. So stay
Absolutely. Look
tuned.
out next week. Stay tuned for
Yes.
an exciting
Yes.
episode next week. And to conclude, we just encourage you to subscribe to This Week in Mormons on social media. So facebook.com/This Week in Mormons, and on Twitter. And if you have any feedback at all, please feel free to send that to contact@thisweekinmormons.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.
Bye.